Welcome to Pencils with Erasers, hosted by Danny Sullivan. Get ready for a wild ride as we bring you the untamed and unbelievable stories from the trading floors of America, both on and off. Buckle up for an unparalleled journey into the dynamic world of finance. Without further ado, let's dive into the extraordinary tales with Sully.
Welcome to a new edition of Pencils with Erasers. I've got my co-host, Marc Eisen, a 25-year veteran of the Philadelphia Stock Exchange, and my brother, Matt Sullivan, who has been on the floors, plural, for 45 years. New York, Philly, Chicago. Hey, Matty, how you doing, bro?
Okay, doing well.
So we'll just, start out as we usually do. And I know the answer already, but just tell the viewers, how'd you get in the industry, and did you go to college and all that stuff?
Yeah. Graduated high school 74, went to Syracuse University for 2 years. I didn't like it at all. I decided to take a year off, and my father was working on the Philadelphia Stock Exchange at the time, and I told him I wasn't going to go back to school the following year. He said, "Do you want a job?" I go, "Sure." So he got me a job on the Philadelphia Stock Exchange in 1976.
How old are you, Matt, at that time?
Well, how old are you when you graduate high school? 18?
18, okay.
I was 19 or 20 years old. And I was, among other things, tired of being the penniless college student. So I thought, why not take a year off, save up some money, make some money, save it, and head back to school again. Be a good interim. So I did that. Well, things went so well in the business that I decided not to go back to full-time college. Instead, I was working for a company that reimbursed college tuition. So I just decided I'm going to keep on working and making money, and they can pay the tuition. I'll go to night school and weekend college. So that worked out. For me, I wasn't really crazy about full-time college, especially at Syracuse. Frankly, I didn't like it at all. And making some money and being on the floor. The floor was great. Almost a lot more fun than, believe it or not, a lot more fun, I found out, than going to college and being, didn't have two nickels to rub together.
Sure.
The people were interesting. The work was interesting. It really got interesting, even more so, when they opened up the stock options floor, the Philadelphia Options Exchange. And the guys I was working for put me in the option floor. And it was a tiny little room with maybe 10 stocks listed. Maybe 50 people working there. It was a fraction of the size of the stock exchange itself.
Hey Matt, real quick,
Yes.
that was before 19th of market, right?
That's before what, Mark?
Before the exchange was at 19th of market. It was at like 17th, right?
Oh yes, the original building on Walnut, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, that was before my time.
Yeah, I was there a few years before the one on Market Street, the new floor, was constructed. So not a lot of room. Stock options took off, and the exchange started expanding. and we were just jammed in there. So moving to a brand new building was a relief. You know, you suddenly had elbow room and new equipment and everything.
So who did
Because
who did you work with on? Okay, first of all, it was really 17th and Sansom. That was the
17th and right.
official address. And then okay, so we started on the first floor because I started in 79 on the first floor. And then I recall we went up to the 11th floor.
That's right.
The 11th floor before we went to 18th, the market.
Right.
Who did you work for when you went to the option floor on the first floor? The 11th floor.
The original, I worked for a good friend of Dad's, Vinny Casella.
Yeah, right, Vinny.
And he had younger partners, amongst them like Jack Heppy and John Cranford and Gary Gefkin. And they were all options guys. So Vinny held down the fort on the stock side of the floor, and the four of us were on the options floor. And it was brand new business. We were expanding like crazy. But they were three guys. They were three interesting guys. They were more my age. Vinny was like Dad's age. He was older.
He loved Vinny.
Oh, Vinny was great.
Yeah.
Vinny was fantastic. And so were the three guys I just mentioned. They were all just like everyone else. Everyone's a weirdo. Everyone has their personalities. Cranford was the intellectual. Happy had money, and Gary had clients. Gary Gefkin.
Yeah.
So it was a good team, and I was their clerk. So I had like four bosses, and I was really there at the beginning.
Can you? I know, Matt. We're going back.
I think here, as I recall, on that very first floor when they opened up the option side, instead of electronic displays for the markets, the bid-ask quotes, they had tiles. A tile that would have the fraction on it, like 1/8, 1/4, 1/2. So, and they'd be on hooks. So if you changed your market, let's say it was a 1/4, and then it went up 1/8, you physically took the tiles off the hooks, and there was a whole bin full of these tiles with fractions on it. You take out the 1/4 and 1/2, and you may find 3/8 and 5/8 and put them up.
Right.
You know, on hooks. By the time we moved up to the 11th floor, they had electronic monitors with key punch. So the specialist would tell the clerk, raise my quote, up 1/8, up 1/16, and they type it in, and it would change instead of the physically removing tiles on hooks.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
So when you went up to the 11th floor, did you ever trade on the 11th, or were you still a clerk?
Oh yeah. I was a specialist on the 11th floor.
Specialist.
I ran a book for maybe a year, and then went back to work. I left Casella for about a year. I was a specialist, and then I went back and I was trading in the pits. Remember Larry Short?
Sure.
I used to trade next to him, the grumpy old man.
Miserable fuck.
Yeah. And Tommy Young.
Yep.
Great guy.
All sorts of characters. What was it? Harry Pace?
Harry was on the 11th floor. I thought he started on the 18th. 18th of market, I think. He started 18th market. I don't think he was on the 11th at that time.
You could be right.
Yeah,
I think he came after.
He came after. What
Yeah.
do you recall any just like any type of trade you had on the 11th that welcomed you to the big leagues? You did some
You know what?
bought
Those were the days. Yeah, good question. Those were the days that mergers and acquisitions started really heating up. So uh, you get in these huge pits, like a rumor would start about company A thinking about buying out company B. A couple stocks come to mind I was involved with. Remember Commodore,
Sure.
the game, the computer game company? That was huge.
Yep.
There was always news out on the thing. It was easily the biggest pit on the floor. It was absolutely crazy. Up until then, it was kind of laid back. But Commodore came around and Howard Johnson, remember the old restaurant?
Yeah. Yeah.
Traded in Howard Johnson and gosh, there were a
There was a
couple.
lot. There was a lot
Hmm?
of big mergers I remember back in the day. You
Yeah, it's
know,
like Philly attracted them.
yeah, Conoco, Phillips,
Conoco.
like when those two merged. And I remember a little bit later when Time Life merged with Warner to make Time Warner,
Right.
and that whole, I mean, that was a little bit later. That was probably like early 90s, but still, yeah.
Yeah, I was in Conoco too. I was in Conoco. I know I'm leaving some out here.
It's all right, Maddie. Just do you remember any type of, like, again, going back to as a specialist, did you make an error, or you took a position that you shouldn't have taken? Do you recall any of that? If you have more
No,
stories.
see, being a specialist, you were in control.
Right.
So if you thought if you said something and then you changed your mind in a split second, you could usually take it back, right? Because since being in control, no one's gonna rub you the wrong way.
Off with you.
The specialist system, the number one in the pit was the specialist. So you were granted some leeway and not held I would find out later in life, and held to the first few words that come out of your mouth. Like, I want, someone, a broker would say, I want to sell, and you go, take them, right? And he goes, I've got 500 for sale. Well, no, that's too many. So you could, but you wanted so badly to be in on the trade that you would say sold before you even knew
the
how
amount.
many he had.
Yeah. Right.
Or even what price,
Right.
because it was crazy. And you go 500. Oh my God, that's way too many.
Yeah.
But as a specialist, you could go, okay, I'll buy 100. And you point to someone in the crowd, goes, you're buying 100, you're buying 100. You tell people what to do. Now, that was a specialist system. When later on, skipping ahead, going to Chicago in the futures floors, it was a market maker system, no specialists, right?
Yep.
So it was a lot more out of control because you didn't have that one guy. It was like herding cats, but at least it was one guy who had the final word. In the futures pits, no one has the final word. That's why it was a lot more physical, because people would try to get their way by using their elbows and their feet and physical contact. But in Philly, stock options a lot more stayed, unless you had a takeover candidate. Then things could get pretty wild.
Yeah, and they didn't have hand signals on the Philly floor, did they?
No, not really. Not really. I remember one broker had a desk. Shelley Stern.
Yeah, I remember Shelley. She was
Shelley,
friends with my uncle. Yeah.
I think he came over from the CBOE, I believe, where they have limited use of hand signals, but at Chicago nonetheless. And he taught his clerks. He was the only one in Philly to do this. His clerks would use common hand signals like, cancel, 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 /here, or taking your tie and raising it over your head like I'm hung,
Yep.
on an order.
Yep.
But hand signals were not generally used. When I moved from Philly to Chicago, from stock options to futures, futures and future options, I had to learn all the hand signals, numbers and phrases.
Yeah.
You could communicate without actually saying it, because it was so loud, you couldn't hear anybody, especially if you're, 50 feet away. You try to read lips, but that doesn't.
What pit were you in with the futures?
I was in the bond option pit on the board of trade.
Yeah.
And it was called the financial floor because we traded all the treasuries. But they put us in the old grain floor. I remember this. So the grain traders moved to a brand new floor. So us financial guys, treasury traders, we got the old floor that was built like right after the Civil War. And I remember my desk was really close to the bond option pit, and it was just packed full of guys, cheek to cheek. Well, these rails that enclosed the pit, I don't know how old the wood was, but at one point during a rather busy day, there's so many bodies pushing against the rail, and they're elevated too.
Right.
The pits are a couple feet off the floor, right?
Yep.
The rail buckled under the weight of all these guys and cracked open, and all these bodies are flying out of the pit. It was quite a sight to behold. Everyone's free fall from 2 feet up, landing on their face.
Hey, Maddie, before I forget, because we're in Chicago right now. Was it the first boss that you ever had? Why don't you tell that story with
where?
Mike Douglas?
Oh, Mike Douglas.
And guess who? And who's the one who introduced you to Mike Douglas?
You.
Right.
It was you.
Tell Mark and the viewers that story.
Oh,
and Manny,
he wanted me to.
Matt, tell everyone the personal who this guy really was personally too, because that makes the story even more bizarre. What type of person he was?
Oh yeah,
okay,
he was very much into religion. He super Christian. He had a number of people working for him, and on a couple of occasions, I'd come in the morning and knock on his door and walk in, just basically walked in to his office, and I'd catch him and a couple others in middle of a prayer meeting. They'd all have their heads bowed. There's a Bible, on the table, right in the middle of them. They'd form a circle and hold hands with their heads bowed, eyes closed, doing whatever.
Are you in the Board of Trade building?
In the Board of Trade building.
Okay.
Yeah. The old offices, the original. I mean, I never barged into the office again in the morning. But so he wanted, all his guys were working on the CBOE. So he wanted someone on the Board of Trade in the bond options, because it was a huge market. So he wanted a trader in there, and he staked an account for me, put up some money, and I walked in there and just started trading for him, taking positions, trying to make money, just ordinary trader job. Well, it turns out, it turns out our friend Mike was running a Ponzi scheme.
Oh,
Yeah, I found out the hard way. He would take money from investors and promise them a classic Ponzi. He promised them like double your money in a year. So he conned a lot of people into just giving him money, and he wasn't like doubling anybody's money. You know how these things fall apart after a while. He can't raise enough money to pay back the original investors with new money. So it inevitably collapses in on itself, which is what happened to him. So I get a call one day. I was clearing through First Options, FOC. I get a call from the chief compliance officer at First Options. The guy I already knew, but I had a phone call. I was taken out of the pit, and he says, "Come up to my office right away." I go, "Huh, okay." I go up there, I sit down, and I was friendly with the guy. I said, "What's up?" He goes, "Look at this statement." You know, you get a statement that shows all your positions and basically debits and credits. And I looked at it. I go, "Yeah, so what? It's a statement." He goes, "Look at it closer." I looked at it closer. It resembled an FOC statement, but it wasn't an FOC statement. I go, "This looks like a phony statement." He goes, "Yeah, because it is."
oh wow.
What this guy had been doing is sending phony statements to his investors showing false amounts of money in the account as if he's making all this money, which he isn't. And then one of the investors sent one of these phony statements to this compliance officer at FOC, and, you know, he's busted. This is not a real statement. So this was a big deal. Up until that point, at that point, I'm sure it's been beaten since then, but that was a record amount for fraud in the state of Illinois. Set an all-time record, millions of dollars.
No, it was that much.
Yeah,
Wow.
Okay.
for a fraud case. I mean, he was thrown in jail he was tried and thrown at the Metropolitan lockup
Right.
near the CBOE,
Right.
in the Board of Trade. He was thrown in there with an orange jumpsuit on. But
Wait, really quick. Speaking of that building, I was on I think it was, I can't remember what building, but I was on the top floor trading, and I'd see them come out,
yeah,
do their exercises. You know,
I think they played basketball up there.
they had a basketball hoop.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember. I
Yeah.
saw it too. In their orange jumpsuits.
Yep.
But he got like 10 years or something like that. And what else happened? He just the whole thing about, Bible study and, that whole facade. He was a criminal. He was stealing, like, I don't know. I want to say millions, but I don't know if it amounted to that much. But I know for sure up until that time in the 80s, it was the largest case of financial fraud in the history of Illinois.
And that was your first gig from Philly, right?
Yeah,
that was
that was the first one.
Yep.
I came in, got off the elevator on the floor because I had an office down the hall from him.
Yeah.
And I'm walking down the hall and I see yellow tape across the doors that they use on crime scenes.
Right.
That was my first clue. Something was wrong.
Do you know, and again, any other stories from others, not from yourself?
Yeah. When you asked me the question before about strange experiences, there was another one in Philly. No, it was I was upstairs trading CBOE. I had uh I worked in an office full of traders, and what we would do is broadcast our quotes down to guys on the floor, and they do the trading, right? So there's like 6 or 7 of us. We were the portfolio managers, and we had a ton of guys on the CBOE floor in every active pit. And I could change my quotes by just adjusting the skews
Yeah.
without getting into too much technical. But I could broadcast down to my guy on the floor when I changed prices through manipulating volatility. Well, one of the guys we had down there, he was a real kind of jerk kind of guy. No one liked him, but he did a hell of a job. You know, he was just a pain in the butt to everyone. He enraged one guy so much in a busy pit that the guy turned to him and stabbed him in the arm with a sharpened pencil, and it stuck in his upper arm, his shoulder. So when we stopped laughing, we thought maybe you should go see a doctor. I think that was a
Because
lead pencil.
no one thinks about, oh, maybe we should get him a Band-Aid, maybe we should call somebody. You're just all laughing.
We're all
I saw
laughing.
somebody get stabbed in the neck. I saw somebody get stabbed in the neck with a pen in the crowd.
That
Like
could have happened.
the guy's jet, right, sticking out of his neck. And we're just like,
I didn't hear that one, but I believe
Yeah.
it in the heat of the moment.
What's so funny, Mark said, is no one's like, hey, should we call an ambulance? Or, hey, should we help this?
no,
No,
He's fucking laughing, you know, like,
get out of the pit. You're taking up space.
right.
that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And
So,
you were,
there's one other story.
oh, please,
this is-
go ahead.
This is like the biggest story ever on the Board of Trade. In the 90s, there was a scam. 3 guys, as far as I know, 3 guys set up the brokers in the bond future pit that they had some Middle Eastern clients with a lot of money, like petrodollars, you know, Saudi Arabian or whatever have you. And their scheme, one guy was up in the visitors gallery and he was the investor. Another guy sat by the futures pit, and another guy sat towards the option pit. And they set up the brokers in the bond pit. We've got a big Middle Eastern client. He's right up in the visitors gallery. I'm going to be trading. So this guy sat outside the pit, flashing in buys in the futures, and like hundreds at a time. And this was being done like 10 feet away from me. I saw him just put orders there, market, buy 100, buy 100, buy 100, buy 100. And the third guy was over by the option pit buying call options by the hundreds, right? So what they set up was a cascading buying event in the futures. One guy was pumping call options, another guy was pumping up the futures themselves. All the traders in the pit are getting short. The option traders are getting short calls,
right?
So they need to buy futures. They're getting the traders in the futures pit short futures,
right?
So, you know, enough pain, they have to buy them back and cover their shorts. So it was a huge, like a snowball going down a hill. And I remember I'm looking around, the floor is going absolutely crazy. And I'm looking at this guy, he's, like I say, he's 10 feet from me. And I go, wait a second, who is this guy? I mean, I've never seen him before. and he's throwing around 100 lots like they're nickels. It's a huge amount of money, 100 lot in futures.
Yeah.
I mean, each future's worth 100,000, and he's buying hundreds at a time. And a guy I'd never seen before. Go, what the hell's going on here? And then I see, I see the biggest option trader in the bond option pit. What was his name? Matt Dane. He leans over the side of the pit, and he sees the guy in the options throwing in all the calls. Then he looks over here, and he sees the guy in there buying futures, and he realizes it's a scam. These guys are scamming, right? They don't have the financial wherewithal to throw around like millions and millions and millions of dollars. Anyway, who are these guys? So they were caught. They were caught.
Like, were they caught at that time, or did they after?
Well, what happens is that the clearing companies are on the hook now.
Right. Yep.
Because whoever was on the other side of these trades wants the clearing companies, ultimately the bank that guarantees the trades.
Yeah.
So theoretically, they're short hundreds of bond futures now, millions of dollars worth of bonds. And everyone knows they've got to cover.
Right. Right.
So you can imagine, I think they put the clearing firm out of business. Was it Stern, I think? Does that ring a bell? Stern?
Yes, absolutely.
Not one of the big ones either. I think he went bankrupt from this. And I think the exchange had to, fulfill his obligations as a member. So all these trades would be made good. And all these call options the other guy was buying. So that was pretty wild. I was on the phone pleading with my biggest client to buy some futures or buy some calls because they're going to have to cover. Hey, he wouldn't have anything to do with it.
He didn't want to do it just because he didn't want to be part of it. They might think he's part of it. Something like that, maybe.
No,
Nope.
He did. He was New York. New Yorkers don't trust Chicagoans for the most part. They only dealt with this because they had to. There are no other futures exchanges.
Yeah.
Right. So New Yorkers don't have time for anybody, particularly like Philadelphians and Chicagoans. So it was always that kind of tension. So of course, he wouldn't do any business because, and he was kind of right, I guess. They're screwing around in Chicago again. I'm not going to stick my hand in there at all and get involved.
Yeah, that's what kind of.
So
Yeah.
he would have made a lot of money otherwise, but that's besides the point. There was. You guys probably know this one. When the FBI wired up traders in the soybean pit.
Go ahead.
That was true. They were wired up because
I don't know the whole story.
they were trading after hours. Like the bell had rung. You're supposed to stop trading.
Yeah.
They just kept trading. It was terribly illegal. Like creating their own markets outside the regulatory structure. So the FBI became involved in it, and they recruited some traders to wear wires. They had wires. But I was in the bond option pit. Brother Terry was a broker in the bond option pit, and he stood next to this guy, Sean Hunter.
Yep, I remember Sean.
And everyone thought Sean had a wire on him. He had to take his shirt off just to prove he wasn't. I don't know why they thought he did, but everyone around him insisted that he prove he didn't have a wire on.
Well, didn't he have that type of reputation, Matt?
Yeah, yeah, he didn't have a good reputation. But
Wouldn't surprise that.
if anybody was going to wear a wire in the bond option bid, it would have been Sean.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. How about like just to get off the trading a little, how about like when it comes to like the food about like
Oh, food. Yeah, food was a big deal
yeah,
because Philly, Chicago, New York, for the most part, there's no eating on the floor. It's like the cockroach story. You get fined. If you get caught with food, you could get fined by a floor official.
the cockroach story.
Did you tell that already? The cockroach? You want me to tell the cockroach story?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
it's the cockroach story.
Okay. When we had moved into the new Philly option floor on Market Street, it was new construction. So I forget what was there before, but it was just outside of downtown. So when they broke land and started the construction,
Yeah.
they made it with a huge atrium in the middle.
Right.
And the floor itself was like not in the basement, but a sub basement. Right. So if you looked out the window, you'd be looking at all the atrium itself and all the plants. But along with this new construction, you got a lot of pests,
Critters.
The atrium had rats. That's another story. Rats in the atrium, but cockroaches on the floor. And they'd be crawling around on the floor. Not a lot, but the first year there, they were there. And I was trading in a pit, and a clerk is standing next to this floor official, Jim Bloom, who is a character. And what happened is Jim was also a floor official. And he says to the kid, the clerk, these guys, these runners, they don't make a whole lot of money. And back then, $100 was a big deal. So Jim said to the clerk, I'll give you $100 if you eat that cockroach. And so the kid says, $100, really? He goes, yeah. Doesn't hesitate, bends over, picks up the cockroach, shoves it in his mouth, eats the cockroach. Jim gives him $100. But then, as a floor official, he fined him $100 for eating on the floor, which was hilarious.
And eating on the floor was definitely a big, big no-no when we first moved in. A big no. And
yeah, you had to be really careful. Really careful.
Always trying to like sneak shit in. And if you got caught, $50, $25, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the year in Philly where you were allowed to eat on the floor. I'm going to say it's probably late 90s. And then it was like no holds barred, because then they were like, they relaxed the dress code and they let you eat on the floor. So I've told Dan this story before where, we went from having to wear a tie and a button-down shirt and slacks and shoes to now all I had to wear was a collared shirt.
Yeah, polo shirt.
A polo shirt. So I would wear a polo shirt, jeans, old sneakers.
Yeah.
And I remember being with my kids at the bus stop when they were young, and my neighbors had no idea like where I worked. They thought I worked in like construction, because I bought like the cheapest clothes because I was in this dirty basement all day. You know?
So as you know, everyone had to wear a trading coat, right?
Yep.
So you had a trading coat which you would keep at the Board of Trade anyway. There was a service where you give, several ladies worked what amounted to like a huge closet with several hundred hangers.
Yep.
And you would give them, at the end of the day, your trading coat. They would put it on your hanger, And then you come in the next morning, they give you your coat. So you never left with your coat unless you wanted to. But you'd always keep the tie in the pocket of that coat. I swear, I worked with guys for years and years, never changed their tie. It would be the same tie. They would take it off, roll it up, stick it in the pocket.
Yep.
You know, at the end of the day, next morning, they get their coat, take that same tie out, loosen it, you know, throw it around their collar. Same tie for years. I did it too.
You know what,
I
man?
mean,
I still have my latest trading jacket, but I also have the tie.
do you? Yeah.
I wore the same tie for, again, I'll just keep it as years.
Years.
Changed my
Same
tie.
one.
Nope. Never changed it. No matter what the shirt was or anything, it was always the same tie. I wonder how much money those gals made doing that. The ones that used to hang the hangers, the tips.
I know they got tipped really well.
Oh, I remember seeing the jars on the
Yeah.
where would they just, and it would
Full
be
of cash.
full of cash.
Yeah.
What about you know, again, man, we don't have to get into, I mean, really the drinking, the drugs, you know,
Well,
not
the
you,
drinking was something else.
in general.
The drinking,
Oh, go
I
ahead.
would. Now, you got to remember the Board of Trade, if you worked on the grain floor and you were a member, all the members had the same coats. They
Yes.
were like gold,
Yep.
right? So it's either gold for a member or whatever the clerks wanted to wear, you know, whatever color. But members wore gold on the grain floor. And the grain started at least an hour ahead of the financial floor where I worked. So I'd come in the morning at, let's see, when did I start in the morning? 7:30? They had already been there 45 minutes at least, the grain guys. So I put it in an hour. Let's say it was 8:30. And quite often, I would go across the street to a restaurant called Excelsior.
Yep.
It was at the Insurance Exchange building. And I'd walk in for breakfast, you know, get my bacon and eggs every so often. And that way I could work through lunch, you know. Every time when you walked into Excelsior, you can either go right or left.
Right.
Right in front of you is a bar that extends maybe 50 feet lengthwise.
Yep.
It's a long bar. Or you go to the left where they had the sit-down tables.
Yep.
Never failed. I went in there for breakfast at 8:30 in the morning, and half the bar had grain traders drinking beers at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Nothing but gold coats.
Yep.
Maybe 20 of them. And I'm like, man, I mean, it's like every day. You guys. I don't know how they did it, but
Didn't they also like get out like at like 12:30 or something ridiculous?
yeah, they go drinking again.
Go drinking or play.
Then they go to what was it? Oh hell, what's the bar in the lobby of the Board of Trade?
Serious.
Ceres.
Yeah.
They go to Ceres.
Yeah. That place was
I
rocking.
mean, I got off at 2:00, the financial floor, and Ceres was like almost pitch dark. You could hardly see anything. They kept it really dark.
Yeah.
You could hardly see. But then the Board of Trade made them turn on the lights. So maybe in the 90s sometime. And it was a favorite place to go. After the close, have a beer, and then catch your train home. Well, when they turned on the lights and you could see everyone in there,
Yeah.
the place is full of grain traders. It was It was awesome.
You know,
They just,
you know what the best was serious when they had the when they opened up the in the middle, they had that all that room. What would you call
yeah,
it?
the sit down.
No, where they put like all these tables, you know, all the
Yeah,
sit down, if you want to call it sit down, yeah.
yeah.
Uh and it was just such a party out there, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
so much fun. Looks like we lost Mark. He told me he had to take a call. So
Oh yeah.
Mark
You're
had
talking about outside.
yeah, like they used
Yeah,
to put out
that was great. I love going outside.
picnic benches and just everybody would just be having
Oh yeah.
it would be all trading jackets, you know, all trading jackets. And it didn't make a difference. Well, it did make it more of a difference if it was after the close, but even during the trading hours, it was just packed.
Oh yeah.
Just,
Oh yeah.
I don't know how they did it. I wasn't really a the day drinker. Don't get me wrong. When that bell rang, I was out of the gate and just let's have some fun. But during the day, I just you know, I didn't partake as much. But
Well, you remember in Philly, the tavern?
oh yeah,
Or
my gosh, yeah.
yeah. Um,
You mean you had the tavern, but you had
City Tavern, something
City
like that.
Tavern. Good job. Or the Irish pub.
Or the Irish pub.
Pub. That was in but the City Tavern, and again, this is going to be sort of silly, but it's when a gentleman who I still talk to this day, Mike Lawson, and I got him on the, you know, job on the Philly floor. And like I said, silly, Pac-Man and steroid, or not asteroids.
Oh, asteroids.
Came up,
No, alien. Is it alien invasion?
that too. They are all
Oh yeah.
you know, first year thing. And at the City Tavern, when you came in the door, you looked right to the right and they had a Pac-Man or
Yeah.
pick the game. And Mike and I used to
Oh
like,
no. It at across the street.
yeah, that's why it was right because we would run across 19th of Market. It was on 19th.
Yeah.
And we would just
Space Invaders.
play asteroids for like, you know,
Yeah.
like 15 minutes, then run back to the floor. And
Oh yeah.
we did that.
It's totally addictive.
It was a lot
It
of
was a
fun.
cool game at the time.
Oh, it's the best, especially asteroids. That's what we.
Yeah.
Then I think maybe we did. No, I don't know if I drank at that time, but I was like what, 19 years old, 20. How about this, Maddie? You know, we can call it a game, call it, you know, the podcast. What if you could do it all over again? Would you do it?
Of course. No doubt.
Wouldn't change.
See, the I'm retired now, but the last 6, 7 years of work for me was in an office at Charles Schwab. So I had my little cubicle and my phone and my computer in the margin department. But you know, it's your same little cubicle, the same people around you all the time. And that's when I really thought about it more and said, I'm so lucky I got to work on the floors. Just so many more people, not the same faces every day. Well, there were, but there were a lot more diverse in Philly and Chicago. But you know, I'm just happy I didn't have to sit through 40 years in an office at a desk.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You know, and there won't be, floors are gone. I mean, we're like the last generation to work full time.
Yep.
With a large group of people before the computers, you know, wiped us out.
You know, I remember when we went upstairs, you know, and did the arb trading. And you know, not to say that it was a huge difference. No, not a huge difference. That's not the right to put it, but it was just a big change from going 2,000 people to one room to 10 people in one room.
Yeah.
It was just
big difference.
It took some, you know, I had to get used to that. I remember.
Yeah.
Because you want to talk. You're always talking and you're socializing. And most of all, constant ball busting. I mean, I remember coming on the floor knowing I better have my A game.
Yeah.
Because I remember there were people that didn't say a word, but then you had a couple of my, people that I knew and worked with that as soon as we saw each other, we just started making fun of one another. And I wasn't I was good, but I wasn't great. And I just remember half the time, at least, if there was 10 of these so-called, busting scenarios, 5 out of 10 I would walk away with my tail between my legs. I got my ass kicked. Like, fuck, I'm never gonna avoid that motherfucker. So
you can't have a thin skin.
No. Oh my God.
Who was anybody with a thin skin that took it seriously, ultra seriously, did not last long. because if you're that way, people can sense it. You're that way, and you just get twice the amount of grief because they know you can't take it.
Oh, I completely agree. And
you would see these college graduates come in from Penn and from Drexel, and the smartest guys in the world, and they would come on the floor all cocky like they knew everything, and the same thing within like a week. Where's that guy? He's not here anymore. Because somebody's putting white out on his fingernails, and somebody's powdering his shoes, and
the tricks,
all that kind of stuff, and he's like, wait, what's going on here?
Okay, we'll end it with this. I'm glad Mark came back on. Pranks.
What?
Pranks on the floor. Pranks.
Oh, pranks. Yeah. My greatest achievement, my greatest one was in New York on the option floor. We got this guy with spurs, paper holsters with pistols in them, and a little cowboy hat we put on his shoulder, the back, on his back.
You didn't know?
Huh?
You didn't know?
He had no idea. He's walking around the floor, and
oh, that's great.
And people are coming up to him like going, and hey Tex. He had absolutely no idea. He goes, what did everyone just go crazy on me? He eventually figured it out. Like he saw the spurs on his shoes. That was a favorite.
And even to get the spurs on the shoes, that was a feat in itself. And there was a couple guys I remember in Philly that were really good at doing it. And then there were times when you would have a new person, and all of a sudden, where are the spurs? Where are the spurs? I think Joe has them over at his post over there.
We'd also put a dollar bill on the floor and tape some string to the bill, so people walking around would bend over to pick it up, and you just pull it away from them, and they just go after it. It was hilarious,
Oh, that's like the Al Bundy from Married with Children when he went to the strip club. That's what he did.
Right.
Okay. I didn't see that one.
Well, I'll end it with mine, and I remember it, and I don't remember it. And it's when Jeff King, he's the one who was doing the powder on the shoes. He brought that, I think, Chicago. So he was the one who came up with that idea, taking baby powder and putting, and then everybody would shout out, "Snowing in Philly, snowing in Philly."
Yeah.
So Bloom comes over to King and says, "Listen, I've got the CEO or whatever you want to call it from Drexel Berman coming onto the floor. Do not, what do you call
powder?
Yeah, powder them. What is, that's the worst thing you're going to tell Jeff.
Yeah.
You don't ever tell Jeff Thing not to do anything. So what does he do? He powders the CEO, head guy at Drexel Burnham, and the guy wasn't too happy, just so you know. Bloom is just through the roof. He's going to throw him off the floor. Really, he was ultra pissed. The same day, or the next day. And he comes in with a whole bag of powder. Remember those flour.
Flour. Yeah.
I think those bags are like this big that mom got when she did her baking. So King is just sitting on his chair, minding his own business, and Bloom comes in and dumps the whole bag of flour. And Jeff is literally of flour. And yeah, that to me was probably the ultimate one,
Yeah.
revenge factor. What I mean by that, just
That's a good one.
Because again, it was all over the floor. His hair, remember he had a perm type of hair.
Yeah.
So
That's funny.
yeah. Okay, guys. So Maddie, again, you wrapped it up by saying you would do it in a heartbeat. So basically what you said is going upstairs for Schwab after leaving the floor was not a good combination of.
It was fine. I just couldn't picture myself doing it for 40 years.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I worked with younger guys. My boss was half my age, my manager at Schwab.
Yeah.
And I'd look at him and I go, he's like 35.
Yeah.
I go, you're going to be doing this for 25 more years? I knew I was going to retire within a year or two, but I'm going like 25 more years. I said, all I could do is thank the fates, let's say, that steered me to the floor. Thank Dad, really, for getting me that first job after leaving college. But that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Getting on the floor like that.
Me too, man.
That's why, guys, I remember several guys that at the Board of Trade, they were willing to be a runner for free. Right?
Yep.
You don't have to pay me anything. Just get me on the floor. I'll do my job. But the only reason I'm doing this is to get another job. Right? So in the interim, I'll be your runner. You won't have to pay me anything. But I'm going to be interviewing as many places as possible. So I might be with you for a week. I might be a couple months, whatever. But I knew a couple guys that did that.
Just to get
on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
They wanted it so bad.
It was a wonderful time. There's no doubt about it.
I don't remember one person disliking it.
Yeah.
Like someone saying, I can't wait to get off this floor and do something else. None.
Yeah, the hours were the best, especially when, Philly, if I'm not mistaken, Maddie, we opened up at 10 o'clock at one point. Like when was it 10 o'clock and then it went down to 9:30 and then 9, something like I just thought I thought we had a 10 o'clock opening.
That sounds a little late, but
I got out.
They kept expanding the trading hours for sure.
Yeah, well, they obviously went down in the morning, but I'm going to have to do my little due diligence on that. I'm pretty sure at one point we opened up at 10, and then obviously Chicago opened up at 9, and then the PCOAST would open up at 7.
Yeah,
that's why I think we opened up in New York opened up so late because of the PCOAST and Chicago, or because they didn't want to get it too early there. But either way, I just my whole point to all that was the hours. 8, we get the 3:15, 3 o'clock, 3 days over. Everybody's
over.
Everybody get 18 in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I always said I don't mind coming in early. If I can leave early, then I'm in.
Yeah.
So I mean the bond floor, I had to be there latest by 7 in the morning. So I had to get up at 5:30. I think. But you had to be there a half hour before the market opened, at least.
Yeah.
Just to get things straight. But he got out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
I was just gonna say.
I said, I'll take that. I'll get up early in the morning, 2 in the afternoon.
And you know where half to 3/4 of the people went after getting out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? They didn't go home.
No.
Nobody went home. Everybody just went out, and it was just like another day. The day was still, you still had you just got done working, but you literally almost still have a full day, especially in the summer when the sun doesn't go down till 9.
Yeah. You
And
could play some golf.
yeah, it was just the hours on top of just just being on the floor in general. The hours were just, were just incredible. So, okay, guys, thanks a lot. Maddie, thank you
All right, Dan.
Mark, we'll do it again tomorrow. And thanks again. Okay.
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 All right, Dan.
Bye-bye.
See you, Mark.
Message from Daniel Sullivan, CEO at Mogator Media Capital. At Mogator Media Capital, we are dedicated to transforming creative and financial dreams into reality. With a deep understanding of both finance and storytelling, we excel at financial investment and crafting compelling narratives. If you have an idea centered on wealth, money, or anything financial, we want to hear from you. If you're interested in investing in a unique entertainment business model, we want to talk to you. Our approach is distinct. With strong relationships with top production companies, always seeking the next Wolf of Wall Street, MMC exclusively focuses on financial genres, making us the go-to destination for your ideas and investments. When it comes to financial content, we're the ones who can bring your concepts to life. On the financial side, we know how to grow your investments in the entertainment market. Our business plan guarantees a risk-free investment with a guaranteed premium. Sound too good to be true? Let us prove it to you. Visit our website at www.mogatormediacapital.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, select either content or investment and fill out the short form that fits your narrative. Join us at MMC, where finance becomes the star of the show.